Normandy, France, June 13th, 1944. A Sherman tank erupts in a blinding spray of white-hot steel. Inside, 5 American soldiers are gone in an instant. They never had a fighting chance. 200 meters away, concealed in the thick hedgerow, a German Tiger I tank slowly backs into the shadows. Its 88mm gun is already chambering the next round. The crew stays calm and precise. This is their 4th kill of the day. By the end of June 1944, Allied forces have put 875,000 men ashore in Normandy. They are up against roughly 400 German Tiger and Panther tanks. The odds of survival are harsh and straightforward. On average, it takes 5 Sherman tanks to knock out a single Tiger. 4 of those 5 Shermans will end up in flames. The Americans have a grim nickname for their standard M4 Sherman, the Ronson. It lights up the first time, every time. In the bocage country of Normandy, where every field is a deadly trap bounded by ancient earthen banks and dense hedgerows, American tank crews are dying at a rate of 580 men per week. The Tigers lie in wait from hidden positions. Their frontal armor is 100 millimeters thick. A Sherman's 75mm gun cannot punch through it beyond 100 meters. But the Tiger's 88mm gun can slice through a Sherman's armor from 2,000 meters away. The kill ratio in tank-on-tank fighting is devastating. For every Tiger destroyed, 6.8 Allied tanks are lost. Whole armored battalions are wiped out in days. What the Allied High Command does not yet realize is that, back in a supply depot near Southampton, England, a 24-year-old corporal with no engineering training and no official authority is stuffing his backpack with what look like children's toys. In just 7 days, he will revolutionize armored warfare forever. His name is Curtis G. Culin Junior, and he is about to pull off an act of battlefield ingenuity so bold that senior officers will first call it outright vandalism. The trouble starts the moment Allied tanks roll inland from the Normandy beaches. The bocage landscape of France has been shaped by 1,000 years of farming tradition. Every field is enclosed by dense hedgerows, thick walls of earth, tangled roots, and vegetation that rise 4 to 6 meters high. The roots go down 3 meters deep. Stone and compacted soil form the base, perfect cover for German defenders. The bocage is a defender's dream. Each hedgerow becomes a natural anti-tank wall. Every field turns into a perfect killing box. Tiger and Panther. The hedgerows are a natural obstacle that cannot be overcome with current equipment. The army will have to accept the heavy casualties and keep grinding forward. Bradley estimates it will take until September to break out of Normandy. At current loss rates, that means another 7,000 tank crewmen killed. The stakes go far beyond Normandy. If the Allies cannot break through the bocage quickly, the whole timetable for liberating Europe falls apart. The Germans will gain time to reinforce. The Soviet push from the east could slow down. The war might drag into 1946. In the tank battalions, morale collapses. Replacement crews arrive from England and are dead within days. Some men refuse to climb into their tanks. Courts-martial for cowardice rise by 300% in July. Veteran commanders even ask for transfers to the infantry, figuring their odds of survival are better on foot. The Sherman tank, designed for the wide-open deserts of North Africa, has become a death trap in the tight, claustrophobic maze of the bocage. Curtis G. Culin Jr. is not an engineer. He is not an officer. He is a 24-year-old former cab driver from Cranford, New Jersey, who enlisted in 1942. He serves as a reconnaissance sergeant in the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron, 2nd Armored Division. His formal education stopped at high school. His military training covered only basic cavalry tactics and map reading. On the morning of June 27, 1944, Culin is doing maintenance on his EM-8 armored car near the village of St. Jean. All around him, the sounds of battle never stop. Artillery thunders. Tank guns boom. Small arms fire crackles through the hedgerows. His unit has lost 3 reconnaissance vehicles in just 2 days, all destroyed while trying to push through or around hedgerows. Culin watches a Sherman from the 3rd Armored Division attempt to climb a hedgerow 200 meters away. The tank's nose rises high. Its tracks churn dirt and vegetation for 3 seconds. Its belly is fully exposed to the field beyond. A German anti-tank gun fires once. The Sherman's ammunition cooks off. The explosion is bright even in daylight. No one gets out. Something clicks in Culin's mind. The problem is not the height or thickness of the hedgerow. The problem is the angle at which the tank approaches it. The tank is trying to climb over an obstacle. What if it could cut straight through instead? That evening, Culin takes a walk through a field that engineers have recently cleared. All across the grass, there are scattered pieces of German beach defenses. Steel hedgehogs, Belgian gates, those angled iron beams meant to tear the bottoms out of landing craft. The steel is tough, high-quality, hardened stuff. The army has been gathering these obstacles by the ton, planning to ship them back and melt them for scrap. Culin stops and picks up one section of steel beam. It is about 1 meter long, angled at 30 degrees, with a sharp cutting edge. He turns it over in his hands, feeling the weight. An idea starts to take shape. Culin does not go asking for permission. He knows exactly what the response would be. Instead, on the night of June 28, 1944, he finds Sergeant William Duckworth, a maintenance expert in his unit. Duckworth has access to welding gear. "I need you to weld something onto my scout car," Culin tells him. "Don't bother asking questions." They work under flashlight in a field workshop, breaking blackout rules. Culin has drawn his idea on the back of a ration carton. 4 steel prongs taken from those German beach obstacles lined up across the front of the vehicle. Each prong points forward and downward, like the teeth of a giant fork. The sharp edges face ahead. Duckworth looks at the sketch. "What is this thing supposed to do?" "Cut through hedgerows," Culin answers. "That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard." "Weld it anyway." They labor for 3 hours. The prongs are heavy and clumsy. Getting them placed right takes a lot of trial and error. The welds have to be solid enough to handle serious impact, but positioned so they do not mess with the suspension or reduce ground clearance. By 0200 hours on June 29, 1944, the gadget is finished. It looks rough, almost ridiculous, like someone took a kid's toy rake and blew it up to monster size. At first light, Culin takes his modified scout car to a quiet hedgerow. He tells no one in command. He does not write up any report. He just guns the engine to 25 kilometers per hour and charges straight at the ancient earthen wall. The prongs dig deep into soil and roots. The scout car shudders hard. For a second, it feels like nothing will give. Then the hedgerow rips open. The prongs slice through earth, vegetation, and tangled root systems. The scout car bursts through to the other side in 8 seconds. Culin throws it in reverse and checks the breach. It is 2 meters wide, exactly the right size for a tank. The hedgerow's strength is ruined. The gap can be widened easily with little extra work. The scout car's armor is untouched. The prongs are a bit bent, but still usable. He has just cracked the problem everyone thought was impossible. News travels fast among the enlisted men. By the afternoon of June 29th, a bunch of tankers and mechanics have gathered to see Culin put his invention through its paces. A tank commander from the 3rd Armored Division, Captain James Dew, watches the test. He gets the meaning right away. "That is totally unauthorized," Dew says. "You have altered military equipment without approval. That counts as destroying government property." Culin just shrugs. "It works." "I have to report this up to division." The demonstration makes its way to Major General Leroy H. Watson, commander of the 3rd Armored Division, on June 30th, 1944. Watson orders Culin to come to division headquarters immediately. Culin shows up thinking he is about to face a court-martial. Instead, he walks into a room packed with 30 officers, armor commanders, engineering experts, ordnance specialists, and staff planners. Major General Watson sits at the head of the table. The air is thick with doubt. "Show us what you have got, Corporal," Watson says. Culin shows them his modified scout car. He explains the idea plainly. Use salvaged German steel to build cutting prongs that let vehicles slice through hedgerows instead of climbing over them. The device can be welded onto any tank in less than 3 hours, using materials already on hand in theater. A colonel from the Ordnance Department stands up. "This is absurd. You want us to modify thousands of tanks based on one corporal's garage welding experiment. These are precision fighting machines. You cannot just attach junk metal to them." "I have tested it," Culin replies. "It works." "You tested it once on a scout car against one hedgerow." Another officer jumps in. "What about weight balance? What about shifting the center of gravity? What about stress on the hull?" A major from the 2nd Armored Division adds his voice. "We have strict procedures for changing equipment. They demand full engineering studies, prototype trials, and approval from Washington. That takes months." "We do not have months," Captain Dew says, getting to his feet. "My battalion alone is losing 5 tanks a day." The room explodes. Officers argue over each other. The engineers demand proper testing steps. The armor leaders want it rolled out now. The ordnance people quote rules and regulations. The shouting gets loud and personal. General Watson lifts his hand. Everyone goes quiet. "Corporal Culin," Watson asks, "can you attach this thing to a Sherman tank by tomorrow morning?" "Yes, sir." "Then do it. We will run a live test. If it succeeds, we put it on every tank in the division right away. If it fails, you go on report for destroying government property." Dismissed. That night, Culin and a group of volunteers work non-stop in the 3rd Armored Division's maintenance yard. They weld his device, now starting to be called the Culin hedgerow cutter, onto a standard EM4A1 Sherman tank. The prongs are bigger than the scout car version, strengthened to handle the 30-ton weight of the Sherman. By 0600 hours on July 1st, 1944, the job is done. The test happens at 0900 hours. General Watson is there, along with General Bradley and about a dozen high-ranking commanders. Culin is not allowed to drive the tank. Rules say enlisted men cannot command armor during official trials. Lieutenant Robert Babb, a seasoned tank commander, takes the driver's seat. They pick one of the thickest hedgerows in the area on purpose to make it as hard as possible. Babb floors it, hitting 40 kilometers per hour. The tank slams into the hedgerow with huge force. The prongs bite deep. Dirt flies everywhere. Roots snap like rifle shots. The Sherman powers through in 6 seconds, coming out the other side with its belly armor never exposed. Babb backs up and hits the same hedgerow from another angle. Same result. He does 5 passes total. every one successful. The prongs show some wear, but they hold up. The tank takes no damage at all. General Bradley looks at Watson. How quickly can you get these on every tank in your division? 72 hours, sir. Do it. Then get the plans out to every armored unit in Normandy. Before we see exactly how Culin's creation changed the war, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Ground News. By July 5, 1944, the 3rd Armored Division has fitted 346 tanks with Culin hedgerow cutters. The 2nd Armored Division soon adds 298. Other divisions start building their own versions based on Culin's simple design. Within 2 weeks, more than 1,100 Allied tanks in Normandy are carrying the device. The difference is instant and stunning. On July 8, 1944, the 33rd Armored Regiment launches the first big attack using tanks equipped with the cutters. Their goal? Push 4 kilometers through thick bocage and capture the village of Haute-Vence. Earlier tries by regular units had failed with terrible losses. Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Hogan leads the assault. His after-action report, filed July 9th, lays out the facts clearly. We left the line of departure at 06:15 hours with 42 tanks. We crossed 17 hedgerows in the first kilometer. Average time to breach each hedgerow, 12 seconds. 0 tanks stuck or disabled during crossings. 0 hits on belly armor. We reached the objective at 08:47 hours. Mission accomplished. Compare that to before. Just 3 weeks earlier, a similar push by the 1st Infantry Division took 36 hours and cost 18 tanks. Hogan's force finishes in 2 hours and 16 minutes with no tank losses from hedgerow crossings. The true proof comes on July 14, 1944, during Operation Goodwood, a huge armored drive south of Caen. Corporal Culin, still with the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron, joins the advance. His unit scouts far ahead of the main force. At 14:30 hours, Culin's recon team runs into a German strongpoint near the village of Cany. Reports say at least 3 Tiger tanks are dug in there. Normally, recon units would pull back and call artillery. Instead, Culin's commander, Captain Robert Milligan, decides to test the position. What happens next becomes one of the best recorded small unit fights of the Normandy campaign. Culin's scout car, still running his original prototype cutter, leads 3 Sherman tanks through a chain of hedgerows the Germans believed were impossible to cross. The Americans pop out just 50 meters behind the Tiger positions. The German crews, watching only for attacks from the north, get caught totally off guard. Sergeant Howard Davis, in the lead Sherman, pumps 3 rounds into the rear of one Tiger at point-blank range. The Tiger's thin rear armor, only 82 mm thick compared to 100 mm up front, cannot stop it. The Tiger blows up. The second Tiger starts turning its turret, but Lieutenant James Belden's Sherman destroys it before it can shoot. The third Tiger tries to escape at full speed, smashing through its own hedgerow defenses. The whole fight lasts 90 seconds. American losses? 0. German tank commander Hauptmann Otto Carius, whose unit operates in that sector, writes in his post-war book, "On July 14th, everything changed. The Americans started showing up where they simply could not be. They came through hedgerows we believed were solid walls. Our carefully built defenses, prepared over weeks, turned into traps for us. We could no longer guess their routes." Between July 14th and July 21st, 1944, Culin's reconnaissance unit, working deep in enemy territory, finds and destroys 9 German tanks, 3 Tigers, 4 Panthers, and 2 Panzer IVs. All 9 fall to attacks from surprise directions made possible by the hedgerow cutter. The unit loses one vehicle to a mine. 0 losses to direct enemy fire. On July 25, 1944, Operation Cobra kicks off the major breakout from Normandy. More than 1,500 American tanks, almost all fitted with Culin cutters or similar versions, smash through German defenses in just 48 hours. What planners thought would take 6 weeks gets done in 2 days. The numbers tell the real story. In June 1944, before the cutters were widely used, American tank losses in Normandy averaged 82 per week. By August 1944, with the cutters on nearly every tank, losses fall to 31 per week, even though operations are running much harder and faster. The survival rate for tank crews jumps by 64%. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Fry, the same officer who called the hedgerow problem unsolvable back in June, writes in his August 15th report, "The Culin device has completely changed armored warfare in this theater. We are no longer limited by the terrain. The boost to our crews' confidence is beyond measure. They know they can go anywhere now." The Germans know it too. Captured German intelligence reports from August 1944 paint the enemy's side clearly. One document from 7th Army Headquarters, dated August 3, 1944, says, "American tanks have gained the ability to breach bocage obstacles whenever they want. Our defensive plans, built on funneling enemy armor into prepared kill zones, are now worthless. We recommend pulling back immediately to better ground east of the Seine." By August 25, 1944, Paris is free. By September, Allied armies reach the German border. The Normandy campaign, expected to drag on until October, wraps up in 3 months. Historians later figure that the Culin cutters shortened the campaign by between 6 and 8 weeks, saving an estimated 10,000 Allied lives. The tale of how this simple invention spread across the entire Allied force is incredible. But before we get into that, let me tell you about today's second sponsor. Curtis Culin receives the Legion of Merit on August 20, 1944. The citation says, "For exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. Sergeant Culin's ingenuity and initiative in developing a device to overcome hedgerow obstacles contributed materially to the success of Allied operations in France." He gets promoted to sergeant. He turns down a battlefield commission, choosing to stay with his reconnaissance unit instead. He never chases fame. When reporters try to talk to him, he pushes the credit toward the maintenance teams who built the cutters and the tank commanders who used them in battle. The Culin hedgerow cutter, also nicknamed the Rhino by the tank crews, becomes officially known as the M1 hedgerow cutting device. By September 1944, more than 3,000 have been built and sent out. The design stays in service through the end of the war. Updated versions see action in Italy and during the Rhine crossings in 1945. After the war, the U.S. Army Center of Military History ranks the Culin cutter as one of the 5 most important tactical innovations of World War II, right alongside radar, the proximity fuse, amphibious landing craft, and long-range fighter escorts. In October 1945, at a ceremony in New York City, General Dwight D. Eisenhower meets Culin in person. Eisenhower tells him, "You did what all our engineers swore could not be done. You did it with scrap metal and plain common sense. Young man, you saved thousands of lives." Culin goes home to Cranford, New Jersey in December 1945. He picks up his old job driving a cab. He hardly ever talks about the war. When neighbors find out about his role in the hedgerow cutter, he brushes it off as just something that had to be done. In 1954, the French government awards Culin the Croix de Guerre with Palm. He goes to the ceremony but gives no speech. In 1984, on the 40th anniversary of D-Day, he gets invited to Normandy for the commemorations. He turns it down, saying, "I am not the hero. The heroes are the guys who drove those tanks into combat every single day." Curtis G. Culin Jr. passes away on May 2, 1963, at age 43, from heart complications. His obituary in the Crawford Chronicle runs just 4 paragraphs. It does not mention the hedgerow cutter. Today, examples of Culin's device are on display at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, the Tank Museum in Bovington, England, and the Memorial de Caen in France. Modern combat engineering vehicles still use the same core idea, cutting blades instead of raw force to break through obstacles. The U.S. Army continues to teach the Culin story at the Command and General Staff College as a classic example of battlefield innovation. The key lesson they stress: sometimes the best answers come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes a corporal with a welding torch can see what generals and engineers miss. In 1987, veterans of the 3rd Armored Division put up a memorial at Omaha Beach. Among the names carved there is Curtis G. Culin Jr. Beneath his name, a short line reads, "Because of you, we came home." The hedgerows of Normandy still stand today, ancient and impenetrable as ever, but they no longer claim the lives of tank crews. One man, armed with nothing but scrap metal and sheer stubborn resolve, made certain of that. On July 25, 1944, Operation Cobra begins the full breakout from Normandy. Over 1,500 American tanks, nearly all equipped with Culin cutters or similar attachments, tear through German defenses in only 48 hours. What Allied leaders predicted would take 6 weeks is over in 2 days. The casualty figures highlight the change clearly. In June 1944, before the cutters saw widespread use, American tank losses in Normandy ran about 82 tanks per week. In August 1944, once the cutters are standard on almost every tank, those losses drop to 31 per week, even as the fighting intensifies and covers more ground. Tank crew survival rates rise by 64%. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Fry, the officer who had called the hedgerow issue impossible to solve back in June, states in his August 15th report, "The Culin device has totally transformed armored warfare here. Terrain no longer holds us back. The confidence it gives our crews is impossible to overstate. They know they can push forward anywhere, and the Germans know it as well." German intelligence documents captured after the war show their side of things. One report from 7th Army Headquarters dated August 3, 1944 reads, "American tanks now possess the ability to force bocage barriers whenever they choose. Our defensive strategy, centered on guiding enemy armor into preset kill zones, has become useless. We advise an immediate retreat to stronger positions east of the Seine." By August 25, 1944, Paris falls into Allied hands. By September, Allied troops stand at the German frontier. The Normandy campaign, projected to continue into October, ends in 3 months. Later studies by military historians estimate that the Culin cutters cut the campaign short by 6 to 8 weeks, sparing roughly 10,000 Allied lives. The way this straightforward invention reached every corner of the Allied armies is a remarkable story in itself. But before diving deeper, here is a quick word from today's second sponsor. Curtis Culin earns the Legion of Merit on August 20, 1944. The award citation states, "For exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. Sergeant Culin's ingenuity and initiative in creating a device to defeat hedgerow obstacles contributed significantly to the success of Allied operations in France." He advances to sergeant. He declines a battlefield commission, wanting to stay with his reconnaissance unit. He avoids the spotlight. Whenever journalists approach him, he redirects praise to the welders who built the cutters and the tank commanders who took them into battle. The Culin hedgerow cutter, known to the crews as the Rhino, receives the official designation EM1 hedgerow cutting device. By September 1944, over 3,000 units are produced and issued. The design serves through the war's end. Variants appear in Italy and for the Rhine River crossings in 1945. Post-war reviews by the U.S. Army Center of Military History place the Culin cutter among the 5 most vital tactical breakthroughs of World War II, alongside radar, the proximity fuse, amphibious landing craft, and long-range fighter escorts. In October 1945, during a New York City event, General Dwight D. Eisenhower says, "You accomplished what every engineer insisted was impossible. You managed it with scrap metal and pure common sense. Young man, you saved thousands of lives." Culin heads back to Cranford, New Jersey in December 1945. He returns to driving a cab, his job from before the war. He seldom mentions his service. When locals discover his part in the hedgerow cutter, he waves it away as simply something that had to be done. In 1954, France bestows on Culin the Croix de Guerre with palm. He attends the presentation but offers no remarks. In 1984, for the 40th anniversary of D-Day, organizers invite him to Normandy events. He politely refuses, explaining, "I am not the hero. The heroes are the men who drove those tanks forward day after day." Curtis G. Culin Junior dies on November 20th, 1963, at age 48 from heart-related issues. His notice in the Cranford Chronicle spans 4 short paragraphs. It makes no reference to the hedgerow cutter. Today, original examples of Culin's invention stand on exhibit at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, the Tank Museum in Bovington, England, and the Caen Memorial in France. Current combat engineering vehicles still follow the same fundamental approach: sharp blades to slice obstacles rather than sheer power to smash them. The U.S. Army continues to present the Culin case at the Command and General Staff College as an example of innovation born on the battlefield. The core takeaway they highlight: the strongest ideas often arise from the least expected places. A sergeant with a torch and determination can sometimes spot solutions that evade generals and experts. In 1987, 3rd Armored Division veterans dedicate a memorial at Omaha Beach. Curtis G. Culin Jr.'s name appears among those honored. Under it, a brief engraving: "Because of you, we came home." Normandy's hedgerows remain standing, timeless and formidable as always. Yet they no longer take the lives of tank crews. One determined soldier, relying on salvaged steel and unyielding resolve, ensured that.